Hey, everybody. You're listening to Crystal here with the Plant Pusher podcast. And what's really, really exciting is that we're here with you to always talk about all things plants, colors, textures, shapes, their impacts on your life. I love working with plants. I love introducing you to new plants. And here at Plant Pusher, that's what I do. I push you straight to the plants. Hey, everybody. So we want to welcome you back to another episode of Plant Pusher. And one of the cool things we're talking about today is being a transplant and transplanting. So we know that when you're growing beautiful things, or when you drive by your favorite community garden, your favorite farm, you see your farmers at farmers markets, one of the things they do is they transplant plants from growing indoors to outdoors. And so some reasons why that's done is oftentimes to preserve the seedlings while the weather is changing. So they have a chance to be a little stronger in life and continue growing. And so we were talking about some really dope things at transplant. We're also talking about how people are transplants and how people are a lot like plants. They start small, they grow, they have purpose and their beauty. And so I've got the illustrious chef Brian Lindsay here again with me today.
Hey.
And we're talking about transplant life and transplanting plants and a time that you've been transplanted. So can you tell us about a time you've transplanted and how that went?
Well, transplant. I have two, I can honestly say. One was in 2004 when I did an internship in Florida for Walt Disney. And as I transplant, I wouldn't even use that. As I lived in Florida for that year, I was actually moved by the amount of orange, they would call them
orchards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Orange orchards. Then the smell of fresh oranges, I'd never witnessed that. Even as a kid, I never witnessed like looking at an orange tree. And it was new to me. And
I mean, listen, one thing I remember about Florida in general are the miles and miles and miles of orange orchards and how beautiful they are. And at night, when the night gets cool, you see all these flames in these fields. Yeah. And it almost scares you a little bit because initially you think, oh no, the orchards are on fire. But really it's the farmers keeping the oranges warm, because they want them to be successful, and oranges require a very warm growth season. And so they're out there protecting these plants in the middle of the night.
Because the temperatures drop.
The temperature drops and becomes cool. Yeah.
And just witnessing that is something so amazing, and you have to appreciate it. You know, oranges serve such a big purpose in all our lives, if you think about it.
Yeah, whether it's orange juice. Yeah.
Vitamin C, it's extracted for, if you're doing tinctures, it's like there's so many things. And that's why I think when you bring up the topic of transplants, me moving from one state to another state to actually see something yet so small, but has such a big impact, not on just my life, but everybody else's.
Yeah. I mean, fresh fruit when you go anywhere, when you travel, when you think about it, these things that are grown, we've come to enjoy them all year round in ways, and we forget the work that goes into them. But being a transplant, there's also beauty. Whether I'm moving my seedlings from indoors to outdoors, when they begin to really bear fruit, it's something gorgeous. And it's the same thing as people, as we transplant ourselves from, some people go from college to the workforce. Some people go from living life, and moving out of their parents' house or living independently. You're still a transplant. So I guess my question to you is, what has been one of your most memorable transplant moments? Is it the time you spent overseas? And if so, what is a plant that you saw people use in a way that you had never seen before?
So to answer your question, I did a study abroad in France, the south of France in 2014. And as I, took this 4-month, program, I decided to be a fly on the wall, because by just observing, you learn so much. And what I have to tell you is when I got to France, I went to the Eiffel Tower. That was one of the first locations that I went. destinations. And grapes were everywhere. And it's the process people drinking wine. And, wine comes from grapes. So
how many varieties of grapes did you see? Because, here in America, we don't see, we think of really 1 to 3 varieties, but really grapes have
a multitude of varieties. But I'm talking about the grapes that are used for winemaking and, the appreciation these people have for changing, like a transplant, changing it into the molecular structure from a substance to a liquid.
Was the methods that you saw being used or that you even heard about, were they very historical in nature or were they very modernized? Because I think sometimes we think that great things are always made through these huge technological advances, but around the world, a lot of things are still done in a very similar fashion as they've always been done historically.
Well, to be honest with you, France, Italy, those are old world wines. So I know they go through the process of doing it how their grandfathers or great-great-grandfathers would make wine. So it's the pressing and it's the actual transformation that is you appreciate. And from that, you create something that you can put a dollar amount on. Mm-hmm. And it varies. So by transplanting these grapes and putting it through a process, you create something else, but the reward is so great where you see people actually appreciate what they are actually consuming. Mm-hmm. And so as I would witness all of these people just enjoying life and drinking wine, and wine is like, water in Europe. And I actually began to drink as well. And it was just like different flavor profiles. Every time you open up a bottle of wine, you smell the cork to see if it's bad or not. Because if it's bad, it smells like newspaper. If you get that like wet, damp newspaper, if you ever open a bottle of wine and you smell it, the cork itself, and it smells like old wet newspaper, that means that the wine isn't good. It's kind of like it's kinked. Not kinked. It's I forgot the term they use, but it's bad. But then you make it breathe. When they say breathing, when it comes to wine, it's just making the air actually, as they say, like a bouquet opens up. So does wine when air actually interacts with the liquid, and you get different floral notes, or you may get like a earthiness, depending on what grape variety and what terroir, which is the place they grow the wine, whether it's on the mountainside or it's in the basin of a valley or a mountain. That all adds to the characteristics of the wine. But just to go back, that's why.
What? That was a beautiful answer though, because I work with grapes a lot and I really enjoy them. Primarily, we do fresh press.
Yeah.
And so that's where our beautiful variety of oils is created with those raw, fresh pressed grapes. And so a lot of people who fall in love so much with our moisturizers, that is like the Achilles heel we use grapes for that. The hydration, the profile, the lightness, the texture, because grapes are just so valuable. They're beautiful for the skin. They aid in reducing wrinkles, moisturizing. Absolutely keep skin supple. They aid to reducing the sagging of skin. They're packed with antioxidants. They're beautiful. Grapes are gorgeous. And I love grapes in combination with olives. I know that sounds crazy, but think about it when you're eating your favorite snack board. A lot of times there are grapes, there are olives, there are fruits and other cheeses and things like of that nature.
Boys, of course.
Absolutely. And so for me, I love the beauty of fresh grapes as well as olives. So I love the idea of them being used further, not only internally, but externally. I think they make a dope power couple.
Have you ever tried cotton candy grapes?
Oh my God.
They're very sweet, but they're delicious.
And they're not everywhere. So
they have a seasonal window. So
the same thing with pink pineapple. You can only get pink pineapple, out of Costa Rica. And so, I'm the plant pusher, so I got to, talk about things I love. But honestly, I love fruits and vegetables. And so I kind of feel like depending on where you transplant to, you may not be able to find any, but they're gorgeous. And when you cut that pink pineapple open, it's literally pink in color. But they said the volcanic ash is what does it.
The volcanic ash.
Volcanic ash is what turns a beautiful pineapple pink.
Chemical reaction?
In the soil.
Okay.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It's amazing what you can actually do to plants.
Yeah. Like I said, we are a lot like plants as people. We start off as seedlings, we grow, we thrive, and I tell people all the time, within you as a person, you don't transplant until you're ready to be independent on your own. Mm-hmm. But your whole entire life is literally that of being a transplant. You go from a seedling, you grow, you enjoy life, you move on. And so in my mind, I like to believe that we all have like our little plant person inside of us. The question is, are you watering yourself? Are you giving your soul sunlight? Are you feeding and nourishing your well-being? Because that's all a part of the same way we treat a plant.
So that's interesting. Very interesting. I remember I was watching this documentary, and the woman was like, depending on what you eat, because, you transplant sometimes into good situations or bad situations. Mm-hmm. And how sometimes people transplant themselves into bad situations.
Have you ever been somewhere you're not supposed to be?
Yeah. And sometimes you may see the writing on the wall, but you still take, for example, a relationship is over. The person transplants back to the life they used to know, which is very different.
Yeah.
And they seek refuge in food. Mm. Whether it's comfort food like tomato soup and the grilled cheese or ice cream, Yeah. It's just interesting to see how transplants can sometimes alter your way of eating.
That's true, because speaking of things transplanting and changing the way you eat, I found a delectable coconut ice cream that I'm crazy about now because it's so creamy. And so for me, it's always trying to find a way that the plants can jump in and stand out. But like you said, that we're a lot like that as people, transplanting ourselves into situations that maybe we should or shouldn't be in, or great situations, but there's a lesson to be learned. And to be kind to yourself, to nourish your well-being in your soul, and to know that when it's time to leave, to move forward. Gather the information, learn the lesson. But we're a lot like seedlings that are being transplanted in life, and so give yourself the freedom and the grace to make mistakes and to learn from them, and don't stay too long. It's not meant for you to be there forever. It's meant for you to learn the lesson or to spend the time in positive ways as best you can, depending on the situation. And then your time is over. A seedling can't stay in a small pot forever.
That is true.
You got to grow.
That is true.
You growing.
You've seen trees. Like you walk down the block and you see sometimes the trees, the roots are so big that it starts pushing the actual block, like the cylinders.
And that's how people are when we're staying in situations way too long that we weren't called to be in.
Yeah, you have to know when to exit.
Yeah, well, you need to know when you need a bigger pot. That little pot is not holding your greatness anymore. So remember that in life, it's the same thing. You have to know when it's important to move forward and to move on because nobody should stay anywhere too long, which is why we transplant our seedlings every season when we're growing. Just like you transplant yourself into a new situation, you grow to a new level every year.
Careers, we transplant ourselves from learning to actually creating to making the life that we see for ourselves. Sometimes it's difficult, but sometimes you have to go through the difficult times to get to the better days,
Absolutely. I mean, it's like putting your new seedling outside in the soil and it rains a lot that day. And then the next day it's 102 degrees. So I feel like in everything that we do, we're very similar to plants. And we have to remember to be gracious with ourselves, but to also know that nothing lasts forever. And so give your little plant person inside of you the sunlight, the soil, and the water that needs to be successful, keep nurture.
Growing.
Yeah, and keep glowing, keep growing. But, here at the Plant Pusher, that's what we do. We talk about beautiful and amazing plants. And don't forget that before we do that, we're going to talk to you about our olive branch moment. So tell me about an olive branch one time that somebody's extended to you or you extended to someone. Mm-hmm. And while you're thinking, I'll share one with you. So in my company, we make a lot of plant-based products. And I had a family once that really admired some products that we made, but they didn't have enough that day to buy all they wanted. So they bought some. And then in return, we decided to go ahead and to do a donation. And we did a donation to the family so that they could have the plant-based products they needed. Because I felt like I didn't want people to choose between their health and well-being or choosing something that may have not been the best for them. So we decided to donate because my olive branch to them was for them to have a full experience using plants for the entire family. And they were so grateful because they had a loved one with allergies and things. And so they needed something that was going to be better for them. And so for me, that's the olive branch because it's been extended to me so many times in life. So I extend it to others, especially those who are already sharing that they are making the change they want in life. And so that's my olive branch moment. So I have to ask you, what's your olive branch moment today?
As I was listening to you, the idea of moving, transplanting. So when I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. So when I was moving from my studio, and this is back a few years ago, from my studio apartment to a 1-bedroom, my parents, they actually gave me sage because every time you go to a new space, you want to clear that old energy that existed there out. So also that is sacred as well. So normally when I moved in to my 1-bedroom apartment, I lit the sage and opened all the windows and aired out the space and said a prayer, since this is going to be my new place to stay. And from transplanting from small to bigger, I really do appreciate the process and everything it took to get there.
So you could appreciate your bigger pot. You went from being a seedling to going to your bigger pot. That's really dope. Well, guys, we want to thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Plant Pusher, where we push all things great that have to do with plants. And so you stay tuned. We've got more to show you because you know that the plants do the hard work. We look forward to you again. This show, Plant Pusher Podcast, is brought to you by Possibilities Podcast Platform. We appreciate you listening. Stay tuned. Your favorite episode is up next.